My most recent one, honestly, that changed a lot of things. This one thing was like a skeleton key that changed how I looked at everything in my faith, in my Bible. And it kind of ostracized me, man. I ain't gonna lie. When I discovered it, I knew. I was like, man, if this is real, this is a hot button topic, and it's gonna piss a lot of people off.
What if I told you that everything you know is just the beginning? Beyond the veil of the ordinary lies a realm of hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, and untapped potential. A place where consciousness expands, reality bends, and the impossible becomes possible. You weren't meant to stay asleep. You were meant to awaken. Open your mind, remember who you truly are, and step with me beyond the frequency 369. Hey, before you start the episode, if you're on YouTube or Rumble, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. You want to make a comment? Go for it. It's America. If you catch me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit me with those 5 stars. I appreciate the support. Let's start the show. Welcome to Beyond the Frequency 369. My name is Cesar Pagan. And folks, if you can't tell, my voice is gone. I've had a fantastic weekend with the family, a lot of talking and conversating, had some friends over the house, and just my voice just hasn't came back. It's been about almost three days now, but the show must go on. So I hope you guys can bear with me. I will do my best during editing to try to fix the voice a little bit so it's not so annoying for you guys as you're listening. But either way, I appreciate all of you. And more importantly, I wanted to have and not miss this opportunity with Doc Brown, who's my guest today, which you guys will get to know him a lot more if you don't know him already from his own podcast, The Prometheus Lens. So Doc Brown, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you having me. And that's what I was saying. We ended up having to cancel one date earlier because of some scheduling conflicts. But I said it's kind of worked out because I'm getting over something myself. So we'll both try to push through today, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, like obviously for a podcaster, one of the worst things to go is your voice. But we're going to give it a shot. And folks, I'm kind of curious as you continue to watch this show. We don't really know what the show is going to be. We're going to just have a conversation. But let me know what you think about this voice. Should I do it more often, or should I not? Let me know in the comments if it's the worst experience that you've had. I apologize, but let me know. I'm curious too. And if it's the best, let me know too. So, Doc, again, I appreciate you. As I told all my guests, I appreciate you gifting me your time because this is your time to give, and you're choosing it to spend in this hour with me and my audience. So, I want to first thank you for this opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's why I tell my guests, time, that's life's most valuable resource. I appreciate it when you share it with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doc, I got to ask, Doc Brown, where did that come from?
It was just, honestly, it's kind of like an oxymoron. I'm a Southern man, I'm from the South. So we have 6.5 foot to 7 foot tall guys that we nickname Tiny. So I guess that's what my nickname is. It's another oxymoron because I'm just this dumb, 9 to 5 factory worker, been a factory rat my whole life and got this deep Southern drawl. And I like blue jeans and t-shirt, man. I'm covered in tattoos. So it's like when you look at me, you're thinking this is just a good old boy. He don't have no knowledge nuggies, and then I start talking about some of the things I talk about and it blows people's mind. And I just had some people just start calling me, Doc Brown or Professor Brown. And it's just stuck.
Love it. And it fits and it works because when I saw Doc, I literally thought you were a doctor of something.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was just like a funny tagline handle. And does it have anything to do with this guy?
A little bit. I mean, because it just I went with it, because when they called me that, I was like, oh yeah, like Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I even bought a Doc Brown costume that I break out occasionally. I got the wig, the glasses, the yellow suit, and the red button up, the whole 9 yards, man.
You know what? Actually, Doc, I think you posted, I don't know if it's a video or a picture on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I think you're wearing the costume. I loved it. I loved it. And
Yeah.
again, I appreciate you. I like the fact that you have humor, but you also have some gems that my audience is going to be able to hopefully learn something new, right? And if they already heard of anything that you talk about, let's see if it compares to what they heard, you know. So I love these conversations is because what it does is it triggers something, whether it be a remembrance, a new thought, a question, a curiosity, and it just keeps going, you know. So, Doc, I got to ask you before you started. Oh, actually, let me give the people a baseline first about who you are. So let me give you the opportunity. So, Doc, tell us a little bit about who you are. Talk about your podcast, and in general the topics and themes that interest you.
Yeah, kind of like I just said earlier, I'm just a 9 to 5 factory worker guy, and growing up, I grew up in the church in the Bible Belt down in East Tennessee. Of course, you get to high school, you hit the rebellious stage, and I was no different. But I was always fascinated with the Bible, ancient history, and history was honestly the only subject that I paid attention to in school and that interested me. Ancient Egyptians and the megaliths and the pyramids and all that kind of stuff always fascinated me. And it was probably 2012. I was just doom scrolling, found Trey Smith from God in a Nutshell. He was talking about angels coming down, breeding with the daughters of men, creating Nephilim giants and hybrids, and fallen angel technology, and just all this stuff, and was talking about it in the Bible. And I was like, man, this guy's a nutbag. I've read the Bible front to back many times. That stuff ain't in there. Then I got to looking through there and found every bit of it. And I was like, man, I was relying too heavily on my pastors and parents and teachers to tell me what was in there and me not looking for it myself. So then I just started deep diving and going through all these biblical topics, and it led into conspiracy theory. It led into cryptids. It led into ancient lost civilizations, conspiracy theories, all those fascinating subjects. And I was making connections or biblical connections with them all. So I just started going through, man, just reading every book I could get my hand on and just connecting those red strings of thread on the chalk conspiracy board. So I just like to look at all those subjects and just kind of filter them through my biblical lens and see what sticks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And you made a good point about you said that you read the Bible from front to back, and then you realized that maybe I missed a couple of things. And I believe that I see that in a lot of people who read all kinds of Bibles, all kinds of churches. They're so compliant and so convinced that what their pastor or their peers are telling them is all they need to know. And I've always, humbly, I've always asked the question, well, what have you read? What's your interpretation of what was said in today's, what do you call it, sermon or whatever the case is? And they're like, no, I agree with what he said. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't ask that. You know what I mean? And it's always been a rinse and repeat of that type of response. I grew up with the foundation of Christianity, and I also went to church and was baptized and all that good stuff, Bible study, things like that. And as I got older, I remember I had asked a question. The pastor was talking something about Jesus left at 12 years old, and then he came back around 30 years old on the back of a donkey and things like that. And I asked the question. I said, "Well, where did he go from 12 to 30?" I didn't. I raised my hand, and he's just like, "Don't worry about it. Just keep going with the story." And I asked twice, and it became a disturbance that I was asking this question. Eventually, not that I was kicked out, but I felt like I wasn't really belonging there anymore. And that was one of those catalysts for me to just say, yeah, they're not telling me everything. And just like you, I started then looking into other esoteric teachings and writings I didn't even know existed. And then I came across my path. So from everything that you've researched and read, Doc, you mentioned the red line or the red thread for conspiracy. Are you finding any common truth through all the stories and all the knowledge that you've kind of gathered? Is there one solid common truth that you found?
With me, like, there's several different things. Like, I know we were talking a little bit pre-roll, but like, for instance, there's certain things that are culture blind. They're time blind. It doesn't matter what time you go to or what culture or what part of the world you go to, you have common threads. And a lot of people want to strike some of these things up as myth or lore. And I'm the type of person, I'm like, okay, well, you call this a myth or you call this a lore. Well, why was this myth or lore preserved through thousands of years? And every different type of tongue, nation, creed, religion, people group share this common thread. There must be something to it.
Yeah.
There must be a common thread. I mean, even if there's just a kernel of truth in that story, there's something there, or it wouldn't have transgressed time and culture like it has. And some of those are like giants. There was giants on the earth in those days. No matter what culture you go to, what time you go to, everybody's got stories of giants.
Everybody, yeah.
Doesn't matter where you go, every culture has a creation story, and it usually involves order from chaos. And there's usually a chaos dragon or a serpent and some waters. Doesn't matter where you go, you have a great flood. There's a scar in the memory of man of a great cataclysm that wiped everybody out. That's universal. So there's just certain things that I do find that it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, you find it.
What's the most fascinating discovery from your research that has really blown you back? Like, wow, that happened or that existed?
Probably, like I would say, to start with, was giants. Because when I first heard about giants, I was like, no, that ain't real. That's fairy tale. That's, Jack and the Beanstalk fairy tale crap, man. And then I got to look through the Bible, and it's all through the Bible. And it talks about the angels came down and bred with daughters of men and made these Nephilim giants. And well, then you go to the Greeks. Well, what do they say? They say that the gods came down and bred with human women and made demigods like Hercules, and they were the mighty men of old. That common theme just goes everywhere. That really blew my mind, and that really fascinated me. So then I started to get into the Smithsonian and the elongated skulls and how you're finding those all over the world. There's just been lots of little paradigm shift moments that I've had throughout this journey and studying things out. But my most recent one, honestly, that changed a lot of things. This one thing was like a skeleton key that changed how I looked at everything in my faith and my Bible. And it kind of ostracized me, man. I ain't gonna lie. When I discovered it, I knew. I was like, man, if this is real, this is a hot button topic, and it's going to piss a lot of people off, and I'm going to be labeled a heretic, but I want truth, man. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Truth is truth. And I think everybody has pieces of the puzzle. That's why we had to have these conversations and exchange our puzzle pieces with each other and get a better view of what we call life in this world.
I love that.
And yeah, man. But honestly, when I wrote this book, the Epic of Esau, Birthright and Seed War, I ventured off into Serpent Seed Theory. And once I started looking into that, that's the only thing that makes sense to me from what happened in the Garden of Eden.
Is this Serpent Seed Theory what you're talking about that really switched things for you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go straight into that. Let's talk about that. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, see, growing up, in the Bible, you hear in Genesis that God made Adam and Eve, and they were told they could partake of all the trees in Eden, but this one tree they could not partake of. And growing up, I was taught that Eve went to this tree of knowledge of good and evil and took an apple and bit into this apple and then give it to Adam, and Adam bit into it, and suddenly they knew they were naked and they were kicked out of the garden of God. And I was like, okay. So once again, like I said, once I started going through and reading it for myself, I was like, there is no apple in this story. Where is this apple? There is no apple. It's an allegory. We were lied to. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just a little innocent little thing they threw into the story, and it was a misconception. Mandela effect, So I kept reading, and I just had just a lot of questions, to say the least. But I had a woman on my show. Her name was Dr. Joy Pugh, and she's from Georgia. So she's a Southern woman. So she talks in Southern lingo, I guess. So I guess it worked well, and I accepted it and listened. But she started talking about Serpent Seed Theory on one of our shows. And I'm not going to lie, I was just like, man, here we go. It's going to be another one. It's going to be a crazy conversation, because I had listened to scholars and people that I highly respected, and I was guilty of doing that same thing that I'd done earlier, just taking what the other people say is what it is and not look at it myself. So I had all these scholars saying that the serpent seed theory held no water. There was nothing to it. Don't even look into it. Don't waste your time. So, but once she started talking to me, man, she started making so much more sense. And she told me, she said, okay, put yourself in this situation. She said, you got to put yourself in the mindset of the people of the time that the book was written and who it was written to. You can take your modern conceptions and place it on anything and bend it to make it be what you want it to be, but that doesn't make it what it was meant to be.
When you're saying the book, we're talking about the Bible, right?
Yeah, like the book of Genesis, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I'm following.
So she said, they partook of this tree and they were kicked out of the garden. She said, well, let's look at that event. She said, they partook of the tree and she said, and they ate. And she said, that Hebrew word, she said, can be translated to ate, but many, many times that very same Hebrew word is translated to enjoys in the very same book. She said, and it also has the times that it is used, it has a sexual connotation to it. And she said, so she partook of this tree and she enjoyed. And then she went to her husband and he too enjoyed.
So they had
sex. So she went to, yes. So this tree is allegorically the adversary, the Hasatan, the Nakash.
Mm.
And in Hebrew, that word Nakash can mean serpent, but it can also mean the shining one or the one who practices divination. So she said, look, we got to look at the after effects of this. She said, what happens? She said, what's the first thing they do after partaking of this tree and enjoying? She said, they covered their private parts. She said, as a kid, she said, I wasn't allowed to have cookies before supper. Mm-hmm. She said, and sometimes my mom would slip out of the kitchen and me and my sister would get up on the refrigerator and grab cookies and try to eat them real fast before she come in. She said, the times that we got caught and she'd come back in while we were still eating, she said, you know what we done? We covered our mouth.
Yeah.
She said, because that's where the sin was. That's where the transgression was. That's what we wanted to hide.
Yeah.
She said, so as soon as this partaking of the tree happens, they cover their sexual reproductive organs.
Damn.
And she said, and this is Mosaic law. She said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. She said, all your judgments of God in the Bible, she said, correlate with the sin. She said, so she said, if she ate a piece of fruit, the cursing would have been her teeth would have rotted out of her head, or she would have had stomach issues or diarrhea, something to do with eating. She said, all of the curses, all of them, have to do with sexual reproduction. She said, what does the cursing of God say? It says in there that he would put painful menstruation on the woman and that he would increase her pains and labor and that she'd be in great travail and that she would put enmity, or he would put enmity between her seed and thy seed, talking to the serpent. So it says it right there. The woman's going to have a seed. The serpent's going to have a seed. Yeah. And that he is going to put enmity between those two. And then, so I was kind of real and I was like, oh my God, she's blowing my whole worldview here. And then she says, now let's look at the names. She said, the first one that come out, she said, was named Cain. She said, when you go into the Hebrew etymology of that, she said, that means acquired. She said, what loving mother names their child acquired? She said, any parents that's listening knows that this is a very important thing, that you have probably a list of 50 names that you're going through and debating on with your significant other before you finally choose one. It's an important thing. It's chose with intention. And she said, so then you go to Abel. Abel was the second twin. She said, his name in Hebrew means breath. She said, why did they name him breath? She said, because Adam was created and given the breath of life from God. So Abel was in the similitude of his father, Adam. Cain was not of Adam.
Well, that's why he was acquired.
Yes, he was adopted. And it makes sense because you see just, when they get kicked out of paradise, what happens? Abel or Cain is the one with all the evil, wicked thoughts. And he is at enmity, at war with his brother, the seed of the woman, and ultimately kills his brother.
Yeah. Yeah. So was Cain acquired from between Eve and the snake? Is that what that?
Yeah. I believe that what happened there when she partook of the nakash, it was a sexual thing.
Yeah.
And she became pregnant.
I see what you're
and
saying.
then she went and had sex with her husband, showing him what she had just learned.
Yeah, look what I just learned. Yeah, look what I can do, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And germinated the second seed.
Yeah. That's interesting. That would definitely blow somebody's mind that's following the narrative of the whole apple, I made a sin. Because just so we have us standing here, I don't read the Bible much, and I'm not against it. I just don't read it. But I've always, from my foundation of the stories, I always thought, like, why would you get kicked out of the garden for eating an apple? And then why was it that God per se forbidden this apple? Like, it's fruit, it's food. Like, there had to be something more, which made me think, like, there was an actual story, and then whoever rewrote the Bible and things like that just wrote it into a narrative that excluded the actual information for whatever reason. Do you think do you think God did everything, all the stories are in the Bible, or do you think the Bible is like a remix of a bunch of stories put into one book? Your thoughts?
It's hard telling, but I know a lot of Christians, they take the viewpoint that, the Bible is the divine inspired word of God. It's never been changed, and it's been preserved and perfect and all this. And I upset some people. I'm a Christian. You know what I mean? I'll read my Bible. I believe in Jesus Christ, all this stuff. But my viewpoints, in my opinion, are more, honest. Because I'm a skeptic. I might as well be from Missouri, which I'm not, because that's the show me state. That's how I am. It's like, show me the proof, show me the evidence, and I'll follow it and see where it leads. But for us to say that this thing was in its own little box, uninfluenced by the people around them and the cultures around them, I think is pretty naive.
Yeah.
And that's why we see so many similarities. These were people. Do I believe the Bible is the divine inspired word of God? I do. But God chose humanity as the conduit to write these stories down and to do these things. And mankind is proven time and time again. We change things. We screw things up. We throw in our own theology and what we think is right. And that muddies the water sometimes. And I tell people, like, a lot of the stuff that I look at, it has nothing to do with your faith or your salvation. So all the subjects I like looking into, it's just extra, because I'm a curious person. And I tell people, yeah, there's some ambiguous stuff in the Bible, and there's some stuff makes me scratch my head and make me think there was some alterations and stuff done. But I will say this. I think the main thread line, the main story, the backbone of it has been preserved and left intact by God. And what I mean by that is the overall arching story of creation, the fall, redemption through Christ, and returning back to the Father in a Garden of Eden style atmosphere. That, to me, that's the overall arching story of the Bible. And that's been laid out and preserved. Some of this stuff it's confusing. It can lead you down rabbit trails and leave you scratching your head sometimes. But one thing that, to me, in my opinion, is so very simple is the story of Christ. Salvation, redemption, and forgiveness and all that, because I think that was made so simple that a child could understand it. And I think there was some intentionality there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I respect that. And, I agree that even though I don't follow an organized religion anymore, I respect the fact that people at least believe in something greater than themselves. And the most baseline, I don't care if it's one God or if it's 12 gods or 100 gods, but as long as you believe that there's something greater than you, that's the part that I like. now when I get interested is, why do you believe in this? Why do you believe in that? Like I'm now I want to explore what caught your attention. And that's what I like. That's what I like and I respect about religions in that aspect. Not so much the rules that go with it.
Exactly.
If you don't do this,
organized religion
yeah,
has been the hugest stigma for people to coming to Christianity and
yeah,
running people away.
yeah.
But once again, that's humanity screwing things up like we naturally do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because you have to do this. If you don't follow these rules, you're going to hell. If you don't follow these rules, we're going to kill you. If you don't follow these rules, you're going to be kicked out and you're going to be alone. It's like, wow, what? You know? And that part, there's so many people that are okay with that. Like they're compliant. They're like, yeah, that's just the way it is. But why?
That's how they were raised, just like
Because
the
they were
teachings with
raised.
me.
Yeah.
That's what they were told from the day they were little.
Yeah.
And that's what their pastor and their aunt and uncle and everybody around them told them this is how it is. And so that's what they believe what it is. They've not actually ventured out of that squared in fence of the pasture. It's like they're that sheep in that little square box. And yeah, they're protected, they're fed, they're watered, but man, they ain't living, they're surviving. You need to get out of that fence and go off on your hero's journey, man, and form your relationship with the Creator. That's what he wants you to do.
And you, like many other guests, but you in this case are a great example. You just flat out said, I still read my Bible. I still believe in Jesus Christ and all the teachings, but I'm still curious, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. And I hope if there's any listeners on my channel or if Doc shares it on his and things like that, like just hear us out on that. My goal, I won't speak on behalf of Doc, but my goal, my intention of this podcast is I have a belief, Doc, or understanding, I should say, that we are more than just the meat suit, right? There's a lot of people that believe that they are humans trying to have a spiritual experience. And I believe it's the other way around. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. I believe we were something else before we became mortal. And then this body is temporary. It's not eternal. So to tell me that our existence is just from the time that we go wah, to the time we just lose our last breath, I don't accept that, So we're something. So not to get too off on track on that, but Doc.
Well, just to touch on this one point, though, because I love that, and I just want to add to your thought there.
Please.
There was a guy that I can't remember his name now because I watch so much videos and read so much now. Everything kind of blurs in together. So if whoever said this said it, and I don't remember your name, I apologize. But he was talking about the same thing you were talking about. But he said, basically, you are the ghost in the machine. And he said, you drive a car back and forth to work. He said, are you the car, or is the car a tool that you use and get into? He said, you get into the car, you crash that car and total it, but you can get out and walk out. He said, your soul is no different. He said, your soul operates this meat suit. And he said, you got to think about a parent with a car. He said, do you get your 16-year-old boy that 600 horsepower Mustang for his first car? No, it's going to kill him. He's going to wreck and screw that first car up real bad. So you get them the starter car. And then once they show they're responsible and they handle that car well, then they get the upgrade to the Mustang or the next thing. He said, I believe that your heavenly Father, he said, it's no different. He said, you get the crappy starter car to see what you're going to do with it. And then once you wreck this car, you step right out and you go to your next one.
I love that. That. Doc, that leads me, I want to clarify something with you. I mentioned about religion and spirituality. Do you consider yourself religious or spiritual? Or are those two one and the same?
No, they're definitely not the same. Religious, in my opinion, my viewpoint, religion is the do not do this, do not do that. When the saints go marching in, you got to have your suit and tie when you walk in the door, take your hat off, and and all this legality stuff, Pharisaic stuff, and that's who Jesus combated the most. If you read your New Testament, I don't see how people miss this. But it's like he was a hippie. I mean, he was a rebel. He came in, and here was all. Imagine in modern day, your Southern Baptists with your suit and tie, and they're all, marching into their pews single file, and nobody speaks out of turn, and all that kind of stuff. That was the Pharisees of Jesus's day, and he rose up and he's like, nah, he's flipping tables, chastising them, calling them a pit of vipers. And so he was anti-establishment. He was anti-religion. He came to break that mold and set people on a path to relationship with the Father and get away from the legalities of religion, in my opinion. That's how I read it. So, I think my perception, the spiritual part of it, I would just translate that to relationship. Personal relationship. I mean, they're the same thing. I guess it's just tomato, what I would call it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm always curious about, how people view those two terms. It's like another term that I like to, get people to think about is the term reincarnation and incarnation. Some people were like, incarnation, I never heard of that. I've heard of reincarnation when we're talking about scripture and everything. Have you heard those two terms and what the difference are? Do you only know one of them more than the other? I'm just curious.
I know, like, when they talk about, Christ, he was, God incarnate. So God in the flesh.
Okay.
So I would assume maybe that's just the first inception versus the second.
Yeah.
Am I close?
Yeah, I think you are. There's my understanding of it is reincarnation is when you come back into in this case the same body, which in this case that's what Jesus did in the story, right? He reincarnated. He died and then he reincarnated back into his body, and then he went back up or something like that. Where incarnate or incarnation is when if let's say you transfer your consciousness into my body. You incarnate yourself into a different body. That's incarnating. Reincarnating means that your consciousness or whatever it is that you are, your soul leaves your body and reincarnates back into into the same vessel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So because as I told you offline, I read a lot of Egyptian, I'm in that realm and everything, and a lot of the Egyptian texts, Atlanteans, Lemurians, Sumerians, like deities, they would have this place called the Halls of Amenti, which is underneath the Pyramid of Giza in one of their chambers. And they had these, what some would call like a cryogenics chambers, if you will. But it's basically where they would take their bodies in there and they would, while their bodies are being healed or rejuvenated, they would incarnate their consciousness into another body. And then continue to live. Now, all of their people, all of their followers and things like that, they would know that that's, their boss. But this is why a lot of these in the Sumerian kings list, this is why there's a lot of these rulers who lived for thousands of years, 36,000 years ruling, for one area, for one lifetime, I guess. And a lot of ancient stories would talk about these deities extending their lives in that fashion and then walking among men, but not being one of them, which also sounds something like some kind of scripture, correct me if I'm wrong, that somewhere in the Bible, I know it says something like that, where Jesus kind of said something along those lines, that he was walking among men, but not like them or something like that. I could be wrong. Maybe I misread that.
Be in this world, but not of this world.
Yeah. That sounds similar too. Yeah, that sounds similar too. So interesting. Doc, what is I think I read somewhere as I was kind of reading your bio that you were really honed down into the whole church and Bible, and then you left and then you came back. So when you left, what does that mean? Like you just said, I'm atheist type deal, or I'm taking a break? What?
No, it was just, I never stopped believing that there was a God. It was just, I went to the point where, hey, I'm young. There's plenty of time for me to do what I need to do. So I'm going to be doing me right now. So I just I quit going to church and I just started partying really hard and running around with the wrong crowds, in and out of jail and that kind of thing. And it wasn't too early to mid 20s that I started distancing myself from the drugs and all the wild party atmosphere and stuff like that, and started inching back into the church. And I got back in church and started reading the Bible again and got really into this stuff. And then, like I said, around 2012, that's when I started finding all this other quote unquote weird stuff in the Bible. And then that really fascinated me. And kind of like your experience, once I started talking to like my pastors and some of the people that I went to church with and was friends with about this stuff, they were, the paradigm busters have two effects. They either have fight or flight. And there's a few people that can have their paradigm busted and pick the pieces back up and reassemble it and keep going. But most people, it's like, no, that's too much work. They will fight you to keep from you busting their paradigm, or just walk away from you and exclude you and fly away. And I was experiencing that. Everybody I was talking to about, the giants and all the stuff in the Bible that was quote unquote weird, they would just, telling me that I was looking into dark things, or, well, you're looking in that book of Enoch, that's of the devil. You should burn that, not read it.
And why do they do that? Why is it when you look outside the narrative, it's always demonic? Everything's demonic. It's all evil. Why? I don't understand that. Can you clarify why people go straight to that?
Honestly, I think it's just, and don't get me wrong, some of it is, but not all of it. And that's the thing I think a lot of Christians like to do. They like to throw this huge blanket over everything. That if it's not in our 66 book, it's of the devil, don't read it. And I'm totally against that. But once again, I think it's just a victim of their upbringing, because a lot of people, it's like most people are born with their religion. It's given to them.
Their identity. It becomes their identity.
And there's very few people in this world that pick their religion.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, Christianity was given to me at birth. It was assigned to me, and I marched it. But I walked away and self-examined it, and then I chose it. Some people never have that. And that's what I try to tell people. That's why I love doing my show, and I love having conversations with people like you, brother, and exchanging these puzzle pieces, because every single time that I do, I stack another puzzle piece in my evidence file. And all that's doing is creating a firm foundation for me to stand on, and it's solidifying my faith and drawing me closer. I've only found things that strengthen my faith by looking through some of these things.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. You're so right. I didn't think about it until you actually verbalized it, that there's so many people that are born into a religion, but like you were able to just walk out, take a look, and say, okay, yeah, all right, it's for me. Other people, you don't have that choice. You don't have that choice.
They do. It's just that they feel imprisoned. You know what I mean? They feel isolated.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. But it's that fear state of mindset which takes away that choice from them.
Yes.
And you're right. Everyone has a choice. If you got to get to know me more, you will realize that I'm all about the power of we talk about everything's outside of us, out into the universe, put it out there and stuff. But my message is about the power of the inverse. There's a universe inside of yourself, and and when I say this next part, some people kind of cringe a little bit, but you're a God. Not with the capital G, not the creator of all might, but with a small g. Your spirit, your soul is a powerful piece, fragment, if you will, of the greater one and everything. And that's what I focus on. If you're aware of that.
That's a biblical theme.
It's a biblical
theme, but most people miss it.
I'm glad you confirmed that. Yeah.
Yeah. It says in the beginning, Elohim, God, or gods with an S, according how you read it.
Yeah.
But I think it's plural there.
It is plural.
In the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. But the God, in my opinion, Yahweh, says, let us make man in our image. And a lot of Christians want to say, that's a Trinity. He's talking to the Trinity. I'm like, so what? He's an egotistical maniac that talks to himself in the third person? Well, self, let's make some more selves like ourselves. What do you think, self? Yeah, self? Yeah, you down, self? Okay, let's do that. Us selves are going to do that.
I
No,
love that. I love
that was the
that.
divine counsel. And when he
Yeah.
created man, what does it say? It was a lifeless body, meat suit, until when he breath of life into him. He gave a piece of himself to us. So we are all droplets of water from the ocean of the oneness of God.
Right.
And what
Right.
does every river do? Every river flows back to its source. And that's what we're trying to do.
Shit. I love that. Yeah. Dude, I love that. It's like taking a cup at the ocean and then you're like, you're that piece of water in the cup. Are you just that cup of water, or are you still part of the whole entire thing? It's still part of it, I'm just glad. Maybe I just haven't had a guest yet that's reads the Bible like you and still in it to even say or agree what I just said, because I may not say it exactly the way you say and vice versa, but we agree that the concept is
We
there.
have that common thread.
The common thread. That's all we care about. That's all we care about. And having, like a Star Trek explorer, I'm not out there exploring in the cosmos, but through podcasting, you and I are exploring through conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We're meeting new life and people and cultures, and their experiences and how they do things, because we're all having this experience, and the confusion is, but why are we having such a different experience if we're all doing the same thing, or we're supposed to be? Let me ask you this. Let me poke at something, and with all respect, we're just having a conversation here regarding Jesus. I don't know if there's a confusion, but the name Yeshua and then there's Jesus in the Bible, and they're person.
Yeah, transliteration issues there. Yeah.
Is that what? Talk to me about that. Why is it that some people strictly just call him Jesus, and some people are like, nope, it's Yeshua, if they're the same person?
Yeah, and that's the thing with me, and like I said, I'm just a good old boy, and I try to simplify things so I can understand them, And with linguistics, people that have that opinion, they get stuck in this little narrow mindset, and they don't have the expertise and the wide vision of linguistics and how that works. And I'm not saying I do, but I have a lot of friends that with the DRs in front of their names and the PhDs in front of their names that I speak to on a weekly basis that break stuff down for me so I can understand. But yeah, I mean, it's all comes down to transliteration. Yes, the Jewish people, and just for those that want to stick to that strict by the name people, you're not Jewish, so you don't need to speak Jewish. So yeah, there is no J sound in the Hebrew language. So J's turn into Y's. Jesus, Yeshua is basically the equivalent to our English, Joshua, Yeshua. And when it went into the English language, they picked up the J sound because that's how we say it. And same thing with people like in Norway. I got a friend I recently made. I say his name Jacob, but he says his name Jacob with a Y, no J.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's like, and if you are having this fight with somebody, oh no, you got to say it this way, you got to say it that way. Well, here's the thing, people. If you believe in a creator God that created you, he created your languages that you speak to. If he's all knowing and created everything, he's not going to not know when you're trying to communicate with him, no matter what you call him. And I use this example. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she got older. She kept messing my name up. I know that woman loved me. I knew who she knew I was, but she's just getting older. But sometimes she would call me Phil, and that was her youngest son. So she'd look right at me and say, Phil. Would I ignore her? No. I knew who she was talking to. So I turned around and I said, yes, ma'am. Well, I'm sorry. I know who you was talking to. What you need? You think your heavenly Father is going to be so freaking petty that you mispronounce his name and he's not going to respond to you? That's not a loving Father.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a valid, great point.
That's Pharisee, legalistic religion stuff that Jesus came to destroy.
Yeah. I mean, he knows if you're talking to him. My parents raised me again in the foundation of church. And to this day, they don't go to church. I think they stopped going to church decades ago, but they still pray. They still pray. They still, they're like, look, on the side of my bed, I talk to Jesus. I don't need to I don't need to do the whole ritual. I think that's kind of what, to me, religion, and it's a ritual. I have to do this.
Yeah.
I have to do that. I have to wear this. It's a ritual. Like when God first gave, like how you said, gave breath, he didn't say, and then you got to do all these things. He just gave you life. He just said, be,
Be fruitful and multiply. That's all he told them.
That's it. That's it. Have a good time. Enjoy the experience. Have a nice ride, Doc, let me ask you a random question here. What do you think we are? Where do you think we come from? If you and I agree that the meat suit is temporary, what are we? In your thoughts?
Well, honestly, the way I see it is we are, essentially water droplets from the ocean of God. We're pieces of God. So, even in the Old Testament Bible, it said that Adam was a B'nai Ha Elohim, a son of God. And that was a divine name. Anytime that phrase was used, it was talking about divine beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they fell from Eden and that's how we got these meat suits.
Yeah.
And our ultimate destiny is to get back to the Garden of Eden the way it was originally intended.
Like that you mentioned that, and this is why we're having this conversation, because we agree with a lot of things, but there's always different perspectives. So as I study the Egyptian culture, they, there's stories of the Anunnaki and things like that. I don't know if you heard those terms, but they mention that the Eden supposedly was in a location called Adam's Calendar in Africa. And people can Google this, or maybe during the video, I'll just put up a photo of it and stuff. But Adam's Calendar in our historical mainstream history is the first gold mine, the first recorded actual gold mine. And there's still remnants of this compound in a circle and everything. And it was a compound and where, the garden was there and people were mining, and a lot of the children from Adam and Eve, according to these Egyptian stories, were in that compound. And when they were when they were from the garden, they left that compound, and everything out there was humanity and other things. So it's just giants and Elohim. You mentioned it's also a plural translation. So do you believe that there were more than one God at one point, and then we turned into monotheism?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at from the Christian or the Jewish, perspective, everybody wants to say, oh, well, they're monotheists. No, I mean, in actuality, they had many gods, but they occasionally turned monotheistic. But then they would go back to the many gods. They kind of seesaw back and forth. And I think, when it talks about the Elohim in Genesis, that was the divine council. They are, like you had mentioned, lowercase g gods. But I take the opinion that they were created beings.
Yes.
So God doesn't need these other helpers, but it's kind of like he wanted a family. He wanted to be just and share the rule and create a family, and created these Elohim. And then they started working together to create the universe and earth. And that's when they said, let us make man in our image. But according to Genesis 6, it says that in the book of Enoch, it says that these Elohim, that they were the watchers. They watched over humanity and made sure that they, got everything they needed and was on course and doing what they needed to do. They were like the big brother. And that's how I look at it. Yeah. The angelic race is our elder brother. We are the younger brother. And that's a theme you see throughout the Bible. That's that red common theme thread through the Bible and through the stories. And they looked upon the women and seen us, their little brothers, partaking in sex and marriage and offspring. And they couldn't do that. And they wanted that. So it says that they rebelled against heaven, that they went down and took wives amongst the women who they chose and bred with them and delivered the Nephilim, the mighty men of old, the giants and these demigods from the Greek mythologies and stuff. And that's how that all got started. So the way I look at it is when we hear about the Anunnaki and the Sumerian kings and all this stuff, these are the god kings that came down and rebelled. And God let them have a season. But it says that it got so wicked that they were sinning against the birds and beasts of the air. So whether that was sexual or DNA manipulation, and then it says that their hearts turned evil and the wicked was on their hearts and minds continually, and that the fallen angels gave them forbidden knowledge and the 7 sacred sciences, and they perverted them and used them for evil gain, and that the gene pool had become so corrupted that Noah was the only tamim in Hebrew, righteous, and what that word's always associated with the sacrificial system. So the lambs that were without blemish and all these sacrificial animals and birds and stuff, they always said that they were tamim. It means they were pure in their blood. So that's what it says about Noah. It says Noah was the only righteous one left in our English. But when you go to the Hebrew, it says he was the only tamim one left. He was the only bloodline on earth that was not corrupted by these lowercase g God fallen angels.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, so to preserve.
He's the only one?
Yeah. And so to preserve God's perfect creation, he brought the floods and drowned the Nephilim and basically hit the reset button. But according to the legends and lore, he didn't purposefully try to kill them all, because I'm of the opinion that God doesn't fail. So a lot of people want to say, well, if some giants survived, then God failed. Well, no, not if it wasn't his intention. If his intention was just to level the playing fields, that his creation would have a fighting chance, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. If the creator God intends to do something, he's going to do it. If you have the ability to create all of existence, then how hard is it to wipe out what you created? It's like taking your paper and just putting it into a ball and starting over. I know the Bible depicts that the earth's been destroyed 3 or 4 times or more. I think it's been a lot more than that. I think it's been dozens of times. Just that our history tells us, a certain amount, but I think it's been destroyed numerous times for whatever reasons. So it's I would ask this. So let's say it was destroyed a dozen times. Did God just mess up a dozen times? Did he lose control of his creations so many times?
Yeah.
Why would,
See, I think it's like a thought project, kind of. It's because when I read that, it said that God, was the ruler and overseer of heaven and earth. And then when he created us, it's kind of like we were created as, like the Game of Thrones, you had all those lords.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the lords owned land and looked over certain cities and peoples.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think that it talks about when we get into image bearing. It said he made us in his image. I don't think that's so much a physical thing as it is. He is the king and priest of creation.
Yeah.
And we are his lords. Yeah. He gave us dominion of earth to rule earth as he rules heaven. That's why you have all those prayers, on earth as it is in heaven, because we are supposed to rule earth as God rules heaven. So when people see us, they're supposed to see the creator.
Yeah.
And so when we're being gluttons and greedy, not loving our fellow man and helping our struggling people and being good lords of what he's entrusted us with, then the world becomes a darker place. And so, in my opinion, it all comes down to image bearing. So he done this, and he's a man, he's a God of his word. So he gave Adam dominion. He gave mankind dominion of earth. So now he has to step back. It's still his, but it's under the rule and subjugation of us. And so he has to sit back and let us do what we choose and see fit. But then these angelic hosts, these watchers, started inserting themselves into the game.
Yeah.
So then every once in a while, he's like the referee. He comes out on the court and throws a flag. Penalty on the field. You got to go into the timeout box for 1,000 years, bro.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I like how you also touch base on the created in his image, because to that point in Egyptian texts, they talk about that there were multiple deities or fake gods in Mesopotamia, and their head god, the main boss, was Anu. And because all these gods were fighting against each other for resources, which is us human, and territory, he split them all up through Mesopotamia. He said, you take this area, you take this area, so on and so forth. Then the humans that they had or possessed were created in their image, in each one of these gods, different images. So that way, if let's say like cows and herds, if one got out, you would know that one belongs to that god, because everybody supposedly looked like that person. So it's like, I hear what you're saying, because that's how I learned it too. We're in the image of God and blah, blah, blah. And I took it also, to the T. Oh, we look like him because maybe we have 2 arms, 2 legs, and blah, blah. Then I read Esoteric, which predates the Bible thousands of years on stones and stuff, but thousands of years, they're telling these stories. So I'm like, chicken or the egg, I'm like,
Yeah. And with me, I want to tell you this, because just for you to see it in my view,
please,
because
yeah.
I've heard that a lot, and it sounds concrete. I mean, honestly, and I think this is where a lot of Christians, in my opinion, fall short, because they just have their faith. It's blind faith. Well, I can't tell you why I believe what I believe, or I can't show you no evidence to prove what I believe. I just believe it.
Yeah.
But I'm the show me state guy. I can show you all kinds of stuff to back up the stuff that I believe.
I love
whether
it.
Whether I can get you to see it my way, that's a different story.
Right.
But you even have what you were talking about in those ancient texts in the Bible. And yes, and a lot of non-believers that are combative against Christians will use that, and they'll say, well, this text is thousands of years older than yours, so therefore this one's
right.
And I'm like, well, and I tell those people, I'm like, okay, I can see what you're saying. I can see your point of view. But now see it this way. Tell me the first of anything that was the best.
The first,
if that's the case,
that was the best.
The first of anything is never the best.
Yeah.
If that's the case, everybody be driving around in Ford Model Ts. And according to our Bible, what does it say? That shortly after Genesis, the fallen angels came down and rebelled against God. And they were cast out of heaven. And they ruled over the nations. So I tell people, of course, you're going to get the fallen angel version first, because they were here first. They rebelled first.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something here but before us. Absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
And it goes along with the timeline of the Bible. And even what you were saying, how they divided the peoples up. A lot of people missed that.
Yeah.
But that is the Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. Yeah.
When you go to Deuteronomy 32, that's a retelling of that story. And a lot of people they skip through Deuteronomy because it's a lot of laws and genealogies and it's boring.
Yeah.
But when you go to verse 32:8, it says that not only was the tongues divided, it says the peoples was divided amongst the sons of God, the B'nai Ha Elohim.
There you go.
So they were chasing after these lowercase g gods that rebelled and come to earth, and they were giving out all this sacred knowledge and all this technology and doing all this signs and wonders. They were worshiping them like gods.
Yeah.
And so God said, okay, you want to worship these guys, you want them to rule over you? I'm going to let them, but you're not going to like it. And then right after that event is where he establishes his people. And that's where he calls out Abraham. But he tells Abraham, because he said, Jacob, Israel is my allotted portion. And then he calls out Abraham, but he says, all nations shall be blessed through your name. Because he was talking about the preservation of that pure bloodline to where the Messiah was going to come, conquer those lowercase g gods and take back the nations. So, I mean, it's all in that narrative if you just know where to look.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, that's what I enjoy, because we all read different things, we all understand different things, but there's that common thread,
Yes, always.
And it's just fascinating. What you just said just now, I wasn't aware of some of that, but then I was like, okay, oh yeah, I see what's what. I still don't know what to believe. I still have my own understanding and everything, but I love hearing new perspective because it's fascinating. Okay, so here's what I normally do. I like to ask all my guests the same questions. There's no right or wrong. It's just your response. I want to ask you something before I ask you these questions.
Okay.
What do you think is consciousness? I know that's random.
Consciousness. Yeah. I think consciousness is basically the soul syncing up to this computer chip, what we call a brain. And the eyes are a receiver. And the world is nothing but frequency and vibration. And when you tune in there, you're tuning into that station. Boom. And that's consciousness. The soul is the experiencer of this car, and the brain is the computer chip. The eyes are the receiver, and the receiver's tuned to certain frequencies. And I tell people from like a Christian point of view, yeah, demons, lowercase g gods, all kinds of other spiritual entities are all around us. They're probably sitting here watching us talk right now, brother. But they are on a higher or lower frequency, and our eyes ain't tuned to that. And I think that once we were kicked out of the garden, I think one of those wires was, and we were brought down a couple of frequencies, and we couldn't see those realms anymore.
Damn, Doc, you, if you guys are listening, you guys should tune into the YouTube episode and watch me. My grin is from ear to ear because to hear a strong Bible believer to even entertain what you just said is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing to hear because it's not saying that you agree. It just says that you are just open.
Yes.
Have your Bible, go to church, believe in something greater. That's great, but also stay open. Don't be a sheep. That's all we're saying here. I love that. So I appreciate you sharing that with my audience. So I'm going to go straight into, I have 6 questions. First question is, beyond all the knowledge that you've gained and you've experienced in your research and your podcasting and your own journey, what still leaves you in awe or makes you question everything?
Honestly, my biggest is creation itself. Because I tell people all the time, if I'm talking to non-believers, I'm like, hey, I can understand where you're at and your position. Everybody's on their own little journey. I said, but my thing for me was throw away all the books, throw away all the legalities, and I could step outside and just take a look at creation. And I know that there's something higher than me, and there's something that created all this stuff. And it's a perfect system. I tell people, you inhale oxygen that the trees put off. You exhale the carbon monoxide that feeds those trees. It's a reciprocal relationship. The bees pollinate the flowers that spread the seed of the birds. Everything is a symbiotic system, and it's a system within a system within a system that all relies on each other. And if one thing as we know it on planet Earth was not here, life as we know it would not be sustainable. So that to me shows a divine hand, a divine architect, a creator. So throw away the books, throw away the religion, all that. If I never even knew what religion was or never even read any kind of religious text, I could step outside and know there's a God. So you just got to step out on your hero's journey, do your research, and start digging and try to find him. Because in my faith that I chose, it tells me that it's the glory of God to conceal a thing, but it's the glory of kings to search things out. We were built to seek. So get to seeking, man.
Love that. Side question. I've heard you 2 or 3 times mention hero's journey, and I think I read that somewhere in your biography. Talk to my audience about what does that mean, hero's journey?
Well, honestly, that's kind of what I've coined my show. Once I started reading all this stuff, and I read And I just don't read Christianese stuff either. I'm reading esoteric books. I'm reading some of these ancient Egyptian texts. I'm looking at all of it because like he said, I try to be open and I try to find the common themes and all this stuff and the common threads because they're there if you look for them. Joseph Campbell book, Hero of a Thousand Faces. I read that book and he's not a Christian, but I've seen so many nuggets in there that I could take away for myself and my theology. So I kind of realized, I'm like, hey, whether we realize it or not, we are all on the hero's journey. And if you look at all those stories, there's the archetypes and the main storylines. Well, what happens? You have a foundling. You have a kid, typically, or a man, but you have a person that is being raised by someone who is not their parents. And they've forgotten who they are. And they're somebody special, but they've forgotten who they are. Well, then here comes the wise sage that steps forward and calls them forth on their hero's journey. And sometimes they deny it and, fiddle fart around, and sometimes they just take right off on it. But then just like Luke Skywalker, all these stories that we love, they have this archetype in this storyline. They're a foundling. They've forgotten how special they are. They're called to by a wise young sage. They go on this adventure. They go into the unknown. They face their fears. They face the dragon, and then they come out on the other end as a hero. But the journey's not over. They have to come back to humanity and share their gifts and what they've learned with humanity and save the world. And you have that even in the most ancient of stories. My sign back there, it's a guy with a flame behind him, and somebody's holding a sign up. So that's Plato's allegory of the cave. And in that story, people are chained to rocks in a dark cave, and there's this huge flame behind them, and there's people that are puppet masters holding up these little puppets in front of the flame and projecting the shadows on the wall. And the people that were in there in chains, that's the only life they ever knew, was seeing the shadows on the wall, and they thought the shadows were real. And they would debate with each other, what was going to happen with the shadows today, or which one's going to come out next. Well, one breaks free. It makes it to the surface and sees the sun for the first time. It's blinding him. He can't see. Well, he doesn't run away. He doesn't run back in the cave. He stays there and lets his eyes adjust, and he starts seeing everything, the world for the first time, and that he realized that his entire life was a lie. So instead of just taking off and living his life, he goes back to the cave and sets the other captives free and tells them about this great, beautiful world upstairs, and this place is not real, and the shadows are not real, and they kill him for it, and they never leave the cave. So that's what I tell people. We have to be ready to leave the cave. And I ask people that all the time, are you ready to leave the cave? So whether you realize it or not, we are all on this hero's journey. So you have to accept the call to adventure, go into the unknown, slay the dragon, save the damsel, hoard up the treasure, come out on the other end as a hero, and then share that knowledge with the world and save the world.
Thanks for explaining that. And I appreciate you also throwing in the allegory of the cave. I love that story. So for those you that are listening or watching, if you haven't seen that story yourself, you can find it on YouTube. It's a beautiful, very simple story, but it has such a profound meaning behind it. So
yes.
Doc, what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Ultimate purpose. Everybody's going to have a different viewpoint on this, but to me, I think that we were put here not for a long time, but for a good time. And we're supposed to enjoy this experience because, if you take the Christian faith, this is your only shot, so make the most of it. Learn to love people as you love yourself and care for others, because we are all of the same. Skin color, ethnicity, all this other stuff, that's just divide tactics, man. We are all of the same stock. We're brothers and sisters on this journey through life together. So we need to try to help each other, lift each other up at every opportunity we can, create some offspring in a family, teach them good moral values. That way the preservation of a successful, happy life continues. I think a good goal for anybody is to just try to be a good lord of your dominion, of what you've been given charge of, rule in the image of God and be just, and leave the world just a fraction of a percent, if anything, better than it was when you got here. And if we all did that, Man, this would be a beautiful place.
What is God?
God is everything. He is the all. He is the air that you breathe, the sun on your skin, the voice of reason when you're about to do something stupid. He is your father. He is your friend. But I guess just overall, it's just the way I see it. He's spirit. He's everything. But in a dumbed down version that we can understand with our little pea brains, I think father is a really good one, because a good father will create you. He'll clothe you. He will feed you, show you right from wrong. But then he steps back. Jordan Peterson, I love it in his book. He said, leave skateboarding children alone. If you smother your kids and wrap them in knee pads and helmets and styrofoam, and before you ever let them get on the skateboard, and they fall off and they never get hurt, and you're always there watching out for them and not letting them fall and get scraped up, man, they're destined to fail. So a good father has to sit back and watch them make dumb mistakes, watch them fall, scrape their knees, break a few legs, break a few hearts, go to jail time or two, and just be there for them for words of wisdom and dust them off and help them get up.
What is love?
Love. God is love. And love is, I guess if we go to the Corinthians, it says love is patient, love is kind, love is enduring. It's not self-gratifying. It doesn't keep track of wrongs. It's just acceptance and pushing for the betterment of someone else other than yourself.
Dog, before I ask this next question, what's your real name other than Dog?
Justin.
Justin, okay. If you could go back to little Justin and tell him something about your life today, something that he may need to hear, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, honestly, I would just say that don't spend so much time worrying about what other people think of you. And it's good to have a good time and have your sowing of the wild oats, but definitely try to hit the brakes at least a decade sooner if you can. Try to get 10 years back of some good productivity.
I love that. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, just yours. And Doc, you showed me this book before we started the episode. Do you want to plug that in there real quick?
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wrote my first book, The Epic of Esau, The Birthright and Seed War. You can find it on Amazon. You can get a digital copy for $10, a physical copy for $20, or you can go to my website for $25. I can get you a signed copy with some stickers and bookmarks and a little extra stuff. Yeah, this book is about Esau, one of the most enigmatic characters in the Bible. It says that he come out covered in hair, or he come out red, covered in hair from head to toe like a hairy cloak. So I argue, I'm like, with our modern vernacular, this is what we would call a Bigfoot today.
That's wild.
And in his story, through extra biblical books and other things that I'd read, I found out that Esau has a fight with Nimrod, kills the great King Nimrod, steals his supernatural garments that were from the Garden of Eden. We have giants, we have blood lickers and sorcerers, all kinds of great stuff in this book. And this is not fiction. This is all biblically and sourced heavily. So I just went through all these old extra biblical books and just gathered the puzzle pieces, man.
Love that. Beautiful book. How many pages is that? It's pretty little thick book.
I think it's like 250 or something.
That's not bad. It's a good solid book.
Yeah, 255.
I love it.
15 chapters.
Awesome. Yeah. Easy read, folks.
Yeah.
And Doc.
And I write like I talk too. So I'm being catty and making jokes in there. I've had many people say, man, there's lots of good stuff in there, but I'm telling you, I've laughed my butt off reading some of this stuff. I'm like, all right, that's good.
What a beautiful read. And I'm glad that your readers were able to share that with you, that confirmation that you did it right. So yeah, folks, definitely go check that out on Amazon. And I'll put a reminder of this book down at the bottom of the screen and things like that. And Doc, what's one last thing piece of advice or words of wisdom or just anything that you want to just throw in for my audience while they're listening right now to you?
Yeah. I guess I'll end this how I usually end my shows. I tell people that the difference between the known and the unknown is the journey. So good journey, guys.
I love it. I love it. And Doc, it was a pleasure. It was an honor to
Absolutely.
have you. Yeah. I hope that we may have many more podcasts where we can just have a conversation, you know?
Yes, it's refreshing, isn't it?
Just have a conversation and just talk, man. Just make sure, you know, kind of check in on each other. I think once I tell a lot of my guests here, and I'm telling you this, that you're family now on Beyond the Frequency 369. So if there's anything that I can do for you to support you, I'm here for you, buddy. So just keep that in mind.
I appreciate it. Yeah, same, man.
Yeah,
Reach out to me anytime.
Awesome. All right, folks. And if you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, like it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Share this conversation with everybody. Everybody. Talk about it at work. Put it on speakerphone while at work. Because when you talk about this, when you make comments, when you like, when you share, it helps this conversation go farther than where it is right now. But it reaches all the way, not just to the other side of the planet, but beyond that frequency, right? So let's get people just talking, communicating. If you agree with something or disagree with anything in this conversation, talk about it. It's cool. It's fine. You're in a safe place. But make sure, as I always ask you, be respectful to myself and to the guests. We are doing this, some of us, at least myself, are doing this as a labor of love. So this is all free. You know, I just like to be able to have conversations with people like Doc Brown that just let me think and question things that I think I already know, you know? And I'm going to go read his book. I'm going to check it out. I want to see how do you pronounce it again? Is it Esau?
Esau.
Esau. I keep it. Yeah, Esau. All right, guys. Esau. I'm going to put it in big text down here so you guys can see it. And with that said, folks, as a reminder, I love you. I see you. I hear you. I am you. Continue to ask questions. Don't be afraid to pull back the current and take a deeper look, always reaching beyond the frequency.